I've been in some groups with strange people, and one of the things sometimes that you do is try to do some kind of icebreaker just to help to make things a little bit easier. And one of those icebreaker questions is, what would you do if your house was on fire and you could only get one thing? You'd only pull out one thing from your house. What would you take, right? Maybe people come up with all kinds of different things. I don't know what you would take. This happened, right? This happened this past week. In Paris, I'm sure you've all been following it. In Paris, at this great cathedral of Notre, it was lit up. It was on fire. And there was a priest, Father Fournier, who was the chaplain of the firefighters. And so when they got called, he got called. And he went with them, and he was there. And there came a point where it's the question, what do you do? If this building is on fire, and it is, and it's very dangerous, do you try to save something? In this great treasure of a church, what do you try to save? For this priest, he describes two things that he tried to save, that he did save. With great bravery, he wanted to go in to save the Holy Eucharist in the tabernacle, and also the crown of thorns that Jesus wore that we read about today. He was interviewed afterwards, and this is what he said. He said, "As I entered the cathedral, there was little smoke and almost no heat." Remember, it's all up above, right? Little smoke, no heat. But what we had was a vision, surely, of what hell must be like. Like waterfalls of fire pouring down from the openings in the roof, to the downfall not only of the spire, but also of other smaller debris in the choir. And so he's describing going into this church and having almost like raining down fire. Debris, all kinds of things falling down, you do not know where. It could strike you at any moment. It says that he was escorted by a senior officer. And this was where when he was going to retrieve the crown of thorns that Jesus wore. He got there. He says the difficulty was not in getting there, but it was in finding the holder of the code to the safe that held the crown of thorns. A big problem, right? Have you ever had this happen? Where you get in and now I've got to run, but you don't have the key. You forgot the key. And so he gets in there. What do? So he's running around frantically trying to find the code, the key to be able to access this safe. While the firefighters are there, I don't know what they're using, axes, something, trying to bash the safe open. He carries on. This took us much time. And during this quest for the code, a team of firefighters was trying to break open the safe. And they did so, just as I got hold of the keys. Isn't that always how it happens? Just as he got the keys, they were able to bust it open, and he was able to save the crown of thorns that Jesus wore that we read about today. Those two things, don't they seem kind of strange? If you could save one thing or two things out of your house or out of the church, what would it be? You might think the Blessed Sacrament, the Holy Communion, right? For us, the Holy Communion is in every church. Every church has a tabernacle, and there's lots of them. And if we lose them, we can say Mass, and we'll have more. They're not rare, but the Holy Communion is precious. A great treasure, maybe the greatest treasure in the whole world. It is the greatest treasure in the whole world because the Holy Communion is Jesus. Yesterday we remember the Last Supper. This is my body. This is my blood. This is Jesus himself. So first thing to save in the mind and heart of that priest was the Holy Eucharist. The second, again, kind of a strange thing. Why would you go after the crown of thorns? Why even did we keep it? Why, when Jesus was taken down from the cross, didn't we tear it apart or burn it or something? Because this crown of thorns wasn't something I'm sure Jesus was really happy about. But it was a form of torture. It was terrible. It was constantly sticking, jabbing into his skull. It was there as he was carrying the cross. It was there as he hung upon the cross. And it caused him so much pain and so much suffering. Why did we keep it? Why would you keep it? For us, maybe to gain some insight, why do we keep things that hurt us, that cause harm? Not a great example, but the only one I can think of at the moment is we're watching playoffs, right? And different players, they all have different injuries, different things they're trying to hide and to get back out there and to keep on playing for that end goal of the Stanley Cup. And if they win, maybe at the end they'll reveal the injuries that they had, the scars that they had, maybe lost tooth or whatever it was. And if they kept that tooth, this will be a thing of pride, right? This will be a sign of victory, of what we went through in order to get to this glorious end. In a similar way for us, we kept the crown of thorns. We kept the nails that were in Jesus' hands and in his feet. We've kept at least portions of the holy cross that he hung from. These signs, these instruments of torture, of shame, of embarrassment, of horror, of pain and suffering caused Jesus so much pain and suffering. But we kept it because he persevered. We kept it because evil looked at him and evil lost. Evil tried to overwhelm him. But what did Christ do? He absorbed it until there was nothing more to absorb. All that could be thrown at him. And he came out victorious. It was terrible. He died. It killed him. All that evil, all that horror. But yet, on the third day, he rose from the dead, and we're looking forward to that. For us, the cross, these horrible things, are also part of Jesus' victory. They're part of what he did out of love for you and for me. The greatest act of love in the history of the world is Jesus offering himself for you and for me. No greater love has a man than to lay down his life for his friends. And boy, did he ever. For you and for I today, as we contemplate Jesus this Good Friday, we remember the words of St. Paul. I wish to know nothing else except Jesus Christ and him crucified. Not because of the shame, not because of the embarrassment, not because he ended up dying, but because he won. He was victorious. He overcame all of it. And for you and for me, he offers us that same victory, to share in that same victory and reward.